pick up on what's going on. With me now, Henry Newman, director of the think tank Open Europe, and former special advisor to Michael Gove, of course. Laura Trott, David Cameron's former political advisor as well. Thank you both for coming. Henry, let's talk about Europe. Norman Smith suggesting there that Theresa May's deal is not entirely dead, that we may see bits of it forming the part of the next negotiation.
Perhaps, and we don't know what Boris Johnson's Brexit strategy is, and that's the biggest single question for his government, assuming it is Boris Johnson in about 20 minutes' time.
We're going to look a bit silly if it isn't.
Well, we might, but he set himself a test, do or die, Brexit by the 31st of October. That's in about 100 days' time. So we'll know pretty quickly whether his prime ministership is actually going to be a success or not. And he's going to have perhaps one of the shortest honeymoons of any new political leader. Normally when you come into government as a new prime minister, you're sort of given a bounce in the polls and the country and your party swings behind you. I think it's going to be much harder for Boris Johnson because the Conservative Party is only just holding on to power in Parliament, with defections already to 4 MPs since the 2017 election, and they're also facing a sort of dual threat. On the one hand, a group of MPs willing to potentially bring down the government if they don't deliver Brexit by the 31st of October, which Boris Johnson's committed to, and on the other hand, a group of MPs who might do anything to stop a no-deal Brexit.
Laura, we've already had Milton resigning in the last few minutes. This issue of party unity is perhaps the most important for Boris Johnson, if it is indeed him, in the next few days.
And I think that'll be his biggest challenge. It's matching the expansive rhetoric which he's had during the leadership campaign with the realities of the parliamentary arithmetic, which are going to become very apparent to him very quickly. He's got a majority of 4, that's going to become 1 after the by-election very soon, and he's got to try and get a Brexit deal through a very divided House. So I'd be looking for him to do as much as he can to bring the party together in terms of his cabinet appointments, and indeed his appointments in number 10
We've
as
just
well.
seen Jacob Rees-Mogg arriving at the QE2. Would there be a role for him, do you think?
I think undoubtedly there's going to be a role for prominent members of the ERG. I mean, this is part of Boris's pitch, is to bring the party together and to be the candidate at the ERG and the person who's going to do or die for Brexit on the 31st of October. So I think there will be a role for prominent ERG members, and Jacob is obviously one of those.
I think we're about to see Boris Johnson himself arriving at the Queen Elizabeth II Conference Centre just around the corner from here. No, that's Sajid Javid. Again, Henry, it is senior figures within the cabinet. Do you think there will be a view that Boris Johnson has, or whoever it is, that particularly with an international crisis with Iran going on now, Jeremy Hunt, despite everything of the last few weeks, better to keep someone like that in place while he's dealing with something like that?
Well, if I was advising Boris Johnson, I'd be saying, look, you should reach out and build a team of rivals, put the strongest players on the pitch at a moment of national crisis, both, as you say, in the Persian Gulf with Iran, but also, of course, with Brexit. So you want to bring the party together as much as possible, particularly given the hung parliament. I think, of course, he's set himself this deadline of October the 31st that we've been discussing. So I think whoever joins the cabinet will have to sign up to that. But beyond that, I would just go for the top levels of talent. And as Laura was saying, that will include some people from the ERG, but also some people from the other side of the parliamentary party as well. Because what he needs to be able to show is that he can bring the Conservative family back together again. And what we don't know is whether those ministers who've been resigning already over the weekend, David Gauke, Philip Hammond, Rory Stewart, they've said they will do anything, in some cases, to stop a no-deal Brexit. Does that anything, as Meatloaf once said, he'd do anything for love, but he wouldn't do this? Would those people also risk actually bringing down a Conservative government through a no-confidence vote, in which case Boris Johnson may end up being one of the shortest prime ministers in recent history?
Yeah, no honeymoon at all.
I think you'd expect a bounce, and I think there is, despite the disunity within the Conservative Party at the moment, everyone wants this to be over. And I think if Boris Johnson can get a deal, then there is a lot of goodwill from the Conservative benches at least to get that through the House. And remember, Theresa May deal passed with almost all Conservatives apart from the ERG. So if he gets something from, and it's a big if, from Europe, then there is that possibility that he can unite the Conservative Party. But I think the real difference that you're seeing, as Henry Wright said, is around the kind of prospect of no deal and forcing Britain out without a deal. And I think some of his rhetoric around that has been quite divisive, and it's why you've forced these couple of resignations.
Laura, Henry, for now, thank you.